Mr Speaker. My question is to the Deputy Premier in his capacity as Treasurer. Deputy Premier, I understand that last week he wrote to community service organisations to inform them that budget submissions would be due on the 14th of October. This is about 2 months earlier than the first or second week of December, which has been in the past few years. Bringing the date forward will clearly affect an organisation's ability to properly consult with their members and communicate, and consequently submit complete and considered submissions to you. The risk to government is that budget allocations will be misguided, hence not delivering the best outcomes for Tasmania. Treasurer, will you reverse your decision to require community organisations to submit their funding requests in mid-October, a mere 2 months away, and reinstate a December closing date?
Honourable Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Thank you, Ms Johnston, for your question as well. The government is really keen to hear from the whole community, but in particular I have written to a number of organisations that are invited to make submissions to the government to inform consideration of our options as we develop the 23-24 budget. So it is the case that I have written to them with a particular perspective and desire to see that submissions are informed as to future government priority setting. In particular, one which I've highlighted is initiatives that will support the Tasmanian community and have an alignment with the government's agenda to support cost of living initiatives. We took the view that 2 months is a good period of time to encourage those submissions. It's certainly longer than often other initiatives or bills are consulted in the community. We have a standard, for example, 5-week period for local government as an example, and we took the view that 2 months was a good time frame to put around that, but certainly not a black and white matter. The government's already indicating to organisations that late submissions past those dates will absolutely still be acceptable and will be accepted, but naturally the earlier the better, because it allows government to get its thinking around what the desires might be or the good ideas that we would expect would come forward, not just from the community sector organisations but from business and a range of other voices in the community as well. So in short, Ms Johnston and Mr Speaker, the government won't be having a hard and fast deadline, and it certainly is not a situation where a submission that came in after the date in October wouldn't be accepted, or that they've missed the cut-off date. It's not how we work. It's certainly not how the budget development process works, and if more time is required, I'm already letting those organisations know that that's absolutely okay. But nonetheless, we ask them to think about their submissions, put forward ideas that government can and should consider to build a stronger economy, to grow jobs, to grow economic security, as I discussed yesterday, so that we can protect the very good things that are being achieved right now in our state, with the best employment data in our lifetimes, best employment data in fact in the state's history. Knowing that inflation is a global challenge, just have a look at some of the British and American tabloids at the moment. They're facing double-digit inflationary pressures. Our country's not in that position. We're about half that, what some other countries are seeing, but our people are feeling cost of living pressures, and you've heard already throughout the week, Ms Johnston, that the government is absolutely taking a targeted approach. It's supporting our economy and our community and our families with initiatives to support them. We would love to see the federal government actually come on board, because I'm still puzzled and wondering why we haven't seen any action from the federal government with cost of living relief, Mr Speaker. They've been in office now for a couple of months. They came into office.
Order!
You don't actually get a say. You're under administration, Mr Speaker. The Labor Party have been in office since late May now. They came in on a platform
members of Franklin,
power bills, Mr Speaker. They actually said that they would reduce power bills by $275, Mr Speaker. An annual reduction, Mr Speaker. And well, look, we're just not seeing any seriousness about that. In fact, the early evidence is that they're walking away, Mr Speaker, from those commitments. Look, and in a more targeted sense, I'll also take the opportunity, since the Labor Party in Tasmania at least seem to also be not wanting to pressure their federal colleagues on this matter. We'd like to see further relief at the Bowser, Mr Speaker. Now, the current fuel tax...
Point of order, Mr Speaker. Standing Order 45, relevance, is now speaking about petrol prices, which has nothing to do with the question that was asked.
And again, as far as Standing Order 45 goes, the Minister, or the Treasurer, is on his feet. He's addressed the question and he is allowed, of course, to fully answer the question. So,
Mr Winter, I'd like to see as much energy and as much spring in your step in supporting us to ask the Albanese government to extend the fuel tax rebate,
Point of order, Mr.
the
Speaker.
fuel excise rebate past September.
on a point of order, Minister.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. Standing Order 48, sufficient time. The Minister has, Deputy Premier has answered my question. He's now just moving on far beyond the scope of my question. He has actually answered my question, so I ask you to finish running up.
And again, I take the point of order, but I can't tell the Minister what to say, when to say or how to say.
Mr Speaker, I will wind up.
On the point of order, Mr Speaker. Point of order. On the point of order. Very uncomfortable. Actually, Standing Order 48 says that when the Speaker considers a minister to have had sufficient time, they shall call for the next question. So
And I will, when I consider that the Minister's had sufficient time, I will ask the Minister to sit down unless he takes his seat before that. And I'd ask members to allow me to control this House and not interject and cause the Minister to have additional time added because the parliamentary members are using up his time.
Mr.
Treasurer.
Speaker. Look, I think that what the behaviour demonstrates is that one side of this House actually really wants to support Tasmanians with cost of living pressures that are real. I thank Ms Johnston for a question because in particular, the reason that we've written to the community service organisations is to encourage them to focus their submissions to align with government priorities. Government priority? Cost of living pressures. Now, the jacks in the box over here, Mr Speaker, who are springing to their feet, I'd like to see as much energy, Mr Speaker, to support us with our lobbying of the federal government to get on with their $275 a year energy relief and extend the fuel tax rebate relief past September.